3, 2, 1.
Let's go, Faraz. Let's go. Another week, another episode of Bad Decisions podcast.
Hell yeah, everybody. Welcome back to episode number 17. We're here with some Salt Spring coffee, dark roast as per usual, my favorite. Thank you so much for tuning in for another episode. Farhad, today's going to be a special day because we got a special guest. Are you ready to get it started?
I'm fucking ready. Why don't you tell us who is our guest today?
Yeah, we usually spend a bit of time talking, but you know what? We've decided the real meat of the podcast is when we bring on the guests and just talk, and we want to make that as long as possible and not waste your time. And that's why we're going to get straight into this. The guest for today is going to be a real treat, everybody. He is the multi-Emmy winning wizard of motion graphics, all while being self-taught and striding a path less traveled. This dude didn't just climb the 3D mountain. He built it brick by brick. From playing around with Photoshop to going to Cinema 4D, he has navigated the digital landscape like a pro. But the coolest part is that he shares that map with everybody through iDesign by creating tutorials and opening the doors of 3D to people like us all over the world. But don't be fooled and think that he's doing all of this shit alone. No. None of this would have been possible without his sidekick pug, Gus. Everybody, please welcome EJ Hassenfratz.
Hey, EJ, how's it going?
Now I gotta bring it.
How are you, EJ?
Yeah. Dude, thank you so much. Thank you so much for having me on. I'm super excited for this. You got your coffee there. I'm digging it. My design assistant is downstairs sleeping, or else he would be, joining me on this podcast. I'm sure he would have had a lot of insights as well. But yeah, he's just chilling right now.
Let's be honest, EJ. How much of your design is actually done by Gus? Because, let's be honest, it can't be all you. Like, we know he's always in the videos. He's probably doing most of the work.
I mean, you've seen Ratatouille, right? Like, he's just pulling my hair, the little hair I have, he's just pulling it, and I'm just like making stuff, right?
Yeah, well, he's a lot bigger and I guess heavier than Ratatouille, so I'm not sure
how you can fit him in the cap right now.
But also at the same time, I gotta say, your strategy of using Gus as the hook of your videos is so smart. Just like the moment I see your videos on Instagram and like you're holding his paws and like moving now, I'm like, okay, I'm watching this video.
Is EJ. You're like, this is EJ. I don't need to check who it is. Yeah,
I'm watching this video all the way until the end.
I actually need to make tutorials with that, not just like promo for that plushie. But yeah, that was a lot of fun to make and have him kind of star in some of the videos and come up with creative ideas for like I don't know if you saw the last one I did where it's like the Sarah McLachlan like sad music, and it's like if you adopt for just 5 cups of coffee, it was just so funny. Like I was cracking up making some of that stuff, and I'm glad that some people enjoyed it, and I'm just really thankful for everyone who supported that campaign. It's over now, but we got past the goal, so we're gonna be pushing these out, and I'm definitely it's definitely inspired me to make more like stickers and just little products and stuff. And it's definitely a cool outlet for artists. This is a subject we can talk about later, but to try to get outside of just digital art, doing commercial work. Like, it's a really cool outlet for me to just go on my iPad and get Procreate and just start sketching and drawing stuff and making characters and making stickers, and it's just really cool thing to be able to make something in 3D and then be able to hold something in your hand. It's just a really cool connection you build with your art that as digital artists we really don't have unless you get your little screens or whatever that you can touch. But at the end of the day, it's still digital.
Actually, that's a very interesting point you just brought up about bridging the physical and digital. Was it the first time that, you had some of your work turning into a physical toy or a sticker? And how did that idea actually came about?
Yeah, so you see this way. You see all of my toys back here. So, yeah, making vinyl toys or any type of toy has always been a thing I've always really enjoyed, because there's a lot of artists that I follow that are motion designers that have actually gotten into vinyl toy stuff recently. I don't know if you've heard of Puffy Puff Puff. She's based in London, and she does all the cutesy characters that I do, but she does them way better. And there's a lot of other artists that I enjoy as well. Ceci Miade is another artist I think she's based in Mexico City. She does really awesome work. I got like one of her little hamburger characters
Right there.
right
Is
there.
your
The
camera
hamburger
mirrored?
character.
Is that why you're having a? Is
I
it
know. I'm
mirrored?
like trying to figure out where. And then that plushie right there. She actually Melissa. Her name is Melissa like sushi on Instagram, but she got into this. It's called Makeship. And they basically, it's like a Kickstarter for plushies, and I saw her do it. She's like a motion designer. She uses Blender, and she does a lot of character stuff. And when I saw her doing it, and I'm like, oh, these people reached out to me like a while ago too, these Makeship people, and I didn't know like if it was legit or not. And so seeing her doing it and working with them, I just kind of got some insight as like, what was her experience like, and she was loving it. And so I was like, all right, let me do this. And so, yeah, it's just, I think with like NFTs, as much as it gets a lot of crap, and rightfully so these days, I feel like, 'cause it did get kind of gross there. But one of those things that made me, and I'm not sure how many other artists that like got into that were like, oh, I have an outlet to, sell my digital work online, via NFTs. And it also made people think about, or at least me, like, okay, if I made this like NFT, could it have a physical component? I have a buddy here who's local. His name's Scott. He's awesome. He's got a 3D printer, and like literally everything I would make, any character, he would like 3D print it for me.
Oh,
and so that kind of
awesome.
like, that kind of got me inspired as well, and like motivated me to like, all right, so now I'm like, working on vinyl toy ideas, and there's even a little character for the DAT tour that we'll talk about a little bit later that I made. That's like the Cinema 4D mascot called C40.
No, yeah,
So
well,
it's like C3PO. Yeah, I've definitely posted some of him, and he's actually the character I break down and show how to like model and rig and animate. So if you go to the DAT tour anytime this year, any of these cities, I know it's coming to Vancouver, so you can see me break down the the little robot guy. But
I mean, since you brought it up, why don't we just talk about that? Can you tell us a bit about the DAT tour? Because I'm sure there's going to be 3D artists and artists in general watching this. You mentioned that you're making something for them. You're going to be there. I believe Jonathan Wimbush is going to be there as well.
Yeah.
Tell us a little bit more about it, so in case people are in those locations, they might have the
they
chance
are going
to go.
all over the world. This is in US, Canada, and Europe. And for those who doesn't know, it stands for Design and Animation Tour. And yeah, EJ, why don't you tell us a bit more about what you guys do in that tour?
Yeah, so the website for it is go to DAT, DAT. And basically, like you were saying, that it's a design and animation tour. We have myself, Jonathan Winbush, Chris Schmidt, Matthias, who's the community leader over at Maxon. We got Matt and Dave from Mograph.com on the tour as well. And basically what we're doing is we're just traveling across the US, Canada, and Europe later this fall. And we are just kind of doing a big old presentation. It's a day-long little conference. We just got back from Philly late last week. And, it's just a really cool opportunity to, the world's opening again. It's just a really good opportunity to get community back. And like when we went to the Philly date, it's kind of interesting because I asked if people have ever been to a meetup before. And a lot of the people that went have never been to a motion design related meetup. Yeah. So it's just really cool that we can help facilitate this. And it was in Denver a few weeks ago. That's where I live right now. And when I moved here, I'm a big proponent of community. I definitely wouldn't be doing what I'm doing without the awesome community that we have here. Nick from Grayscale Gorilla, Andrew Kramer, like all those heavyweights, and Chris Schmidt, and even, Winbush, what they're doing now, like, it's just incredibly inspiring. And so, when I moved to Denver this was 7 years ago, I was like, I want to create a meetup because I need that. Like, I can't just get the nerdy community just once a year at NAB. And so I created a meetup here in Denver, and it's doing pretty good. People are really digging it, but I know a lot of cities and a lot of areas don't have that kind of outlet. So this is kind of what the tour is about. We're kind of breaking down some of our work. I know Winbush is doing his Unreal thing, teaching a little bit of Unreal. Chris Schmidt is covering a lot of Cinema 4D capsules, which I feel like is like this gold mine of functionality that no one's really played around with yet. So Chris Schmidt's kind of like furling the curtain back from all the cool capsule possibilities and stuff like that. So we all us three, we do our presentations, and then there's a round table afterwards that we try to get local artists to join us and just chat. And we record a podcast just like this, and it's the MoGraph podcast basically. And it's been really fun. It's been exciting to connect with people, and like I said, do it outside of like NAB, because like I definitely want to. I love chatting with people, and it's like great to do it through online and over Zooms and stuff. But I feel like people are getting tired of Zooms and just doing this.
Yeah.
100%. We had the discussion with Farhad. I genuinely believe nothing, at least today, nothing beats that physical connection. And even for this podcast, eventually what we love to do is have all of the episodes be done physically. And of course, when we get, bigger, hopefully, that's going to be possible. But what you said is absolutely true. I went to SIGGRAPH just a couple of months ago, and just going to these conventions and meeting people who are like-minded, it motivates you to do more. Like you come back from the show and you actually want to open your 3D software and start creating more because you heard about all this new tech, all these new updates, and you make new friends, and all of this actually helps. So if you ever feel uninspired or unmotivated, or
go to one of these.
Go to one of these events. And especially if you're new and you want to get started in animation and all this, just looking at people like EJ here and just learning about their journey, it helps a lot. And again, at these events, you get to talk to them in real life. And I think that's the coolest part.
And they can ask questions. And I think the best part is, this is, I think, the first time that is happening after pandemic.
Yeah.
A lot of people started learning 3D and animation during the pandemic.
Yes.
So they haven't been to any meetup, to any conference. So I think this is the best chance for them to like meet up people and, create a great network.
So true. So many. We talked about this, EJ, with Farhad, and I believe Sam Goldwater. He's a filmmaker, and he was a traditional filmmaker. So he directed a lot of commercials. And during COVID, him and a lot of other filmmakers, I assume, they didn't have access to the crew members anymore, and all these commercials. So a lot of people actually started doing 3D during COVID, right? And they learned from people like yourself because they were like, okay, how can I actually start creating without needing a crew or without going out, because they didn't have the capability to do that. And so right now, like Farhad said, like you said, there's so many people who need these sort of events, and you guys are bringing it back, and I think that's amazing. And on top of that, Vancouver doesn't have a lot of these events. So the fact that you guys are coming to Vancouver is going to be really dope.
So there's no monthly meetup in Vancouver. Like, come on, what are you guys doing? We got to get this started.
We have to get it started.
We have to get it started.
I don't think there is any. Have you seen?
I don't think so, no.
No, I don't think there is any. I know there's a lot of artists here, but I don't think there's like a monthly meetup unless we haven't been in the know. But we'll figure it out. We'll check it out. We'll let you guys know. But I don't think there is. And if there's not, we'll learn from how you guys do it and maybe start one over here as well.
Yeah. Let's kick it off when at the end of July we're going to be in Vancouver, so maybe we can get that started. Because that's the thing. Like the cool thing about the meetup in Denver, at least, is that there are people that if it wasn't for the meetup, they would have never met the people that they know today. And we're talking about not only like friendships, but work colleagues and just fellow nerds to nerd out about 3D stuff about. But it's like these are also the people that could potentially hire you someday or collaborate on a project with you. So these are all the types of things that you get from in-person meetups and stuff like that. Yep. Because if I've actually met you all in person, and you're like, hey, I can do this, this, and this on this project and help you out. Like, I'm going to hire you before some random person I've never met before on the internet. So,
very true.
The in-person human touch, I think, with the advent of all this AI stuff, is going to be even more desired.
Precious. It's going to be more precious.
Yes, absolutely. People are going to be looking for that human touch when everything is going to be a robot in the future.
And trust me, we have AI as one of our topics today. We're going to cover all of this. But I think, Farad, you wanted to talk a little bit about EJ himself, right?
Yeah, let's talk about your journey, because I think that's a very interesting path that you took. I think when I was listening to other podcasts that you were in and reading a little bit about you, you were working full time for 8 years and then started freelancing and then started iDesign. So that transition that happened, we want to know what was the motivation, inspiration behind it, because I would say that's a big shift, that to start your own freelance company.
Yeah, so I mean, I didn't create like a studio or anything like that. That freaks me out. But I did I did start my own freelance business, and I've used business in air quotes because I don't know what the hell I'm doing most of the time. But mainly why I went freelance is because when I went freelance, it was back in like 2013. And back then, working remotely was like not a big thing. Like we are in such a different age now with the capabilities of Zoom and all of these remote work tools that we can use these days. And so I went freelance just to be able to get out of my the market I was in, which was DC, which is mostly government work, and ended up working with other places all across the US. And then kind of parlayed that into working more with Maxon and doing stuff with Maxon and doing more training and teaching, and kind of it was all teaching and doing tutorials and making products was always like a side hustle kind of thing, because I mean, basically what I did was I was like, hey, what's Andrew Kramer doing? What's Nick at Grayscale Gorilla doing? Well, they're doing tutorials and then they're selling stuff. And that's just kind of what I decided to do as well, because I was like, if it's successful for them, maybe this could be a thing for me. And so it's definitely been helpful. It's definitely been some nice residual income, but I mostly my bread and butter was doing freelance work, mostly for like sports teams and that kind of stuff. Doing projection mapping, court projection mapping was a big thing back in the day. I'm not sure if it's that big of a deal now, but yeah, court projection was huge. Like 8 years ago, everyone wanted it, and people were blown away by even the most simplest like MoGraph crap. It's like, oh, I fracture the floor, and they're like, oh my god, that's the coolest thing I've ever seen. But yeah, and so getting into sports and some other work, like I did some stuff with Apple, Facebook, Google, and more and more, and time again, I just found myself enjoying myself much better when I was doing teaching. And I would always say that, like, when I go to conferences and I meet someone, they're like, hey, you got me this job, and if it wasn't for you and your help, like, I wouldn't have been able to finish this project. And I always got more joy out of hearing that than any glowing client feedback about a project. So I've been, blessed and fortunate enough that I'm in a position now where I work at School of Motion full time as creative director, and I basically get to lean into the teaching side. But yeah, how I got into teaching was kind of weird because I never went into this thinking I was going to do tutorials or anything like that. Like I can thank, or if you don't like what I do, you can blame Matthias and Maxon for me actually getting into tutorials, and even Nick at Grayscale Gorilla. He's been a huge inspiration for me, and he's been super supportive and inspiring for my own journey doing this whole tutorial stuff. But when I got in, I never wanted to do tutorials really, but I did want to connect with the community, and went to a local meetup in DC, and they wanted someone to present on 3D. I said, sure. I did it. They recorded it for some reason. I didn't know they were recording it. They sent it to Maxon. Maxon called me. They're like, hey, do you want to go to NAB? And I'm like, sure.
What?
But public speaking though. And so that's when I started doing tutorials, was just for me to get used to public speaking and just going through my presentation and covering it. And so tutorials was just like this thing that was just for me to get better at speaking. And then I got really good feedback, and I was like, all right, I'll share more stuff. And then I just never stopped.
Wow. That honestly, I love that story, and I'll explain why. First of all, you brought up one point that we just talked about. You brought up the fact that it all started by you going to a meetup, a physical meetup, right? So your journey, sort of, you could say, started with that. And we just talked about how if you're an animator, if you're a 3D artist, or you're someone who wants to become a 3D artist or an artist, essentially, going to a physical meetup can have its own range of benefits. And clearly, it helped you in your journey. And the second thing is, so I remember reading this, or I believe you mentioned this in the podcast, that you worked at a local TV news station, I believe, and the work that you were doing there, you mentioned it was not super creative. It was pretty much repetitive work. And for you, when you were looking at all these inspirations outside and people who were doing freelance, you realized that, hey, you can do that. But you knew that in order to get there, you needed to put yourself out there. And you needed to, do that by creating content or creating these tutorials and all that, and going to these physical meetups, doing all these presentations. So the questions I want to ask is, do you think that all artists or other artists can and should also be putting themselves out there if they're not essentially happy with the work that they're doing? And that comes in different forms, like creating content and all that, because a lot of artists, you could say, that are introverted, or they think they're introverted and they're afraid of putting their content and putting their work out there. And then there's people like you who were also in that same position. You were afraid to put it out there. You said that you were afraid of public speaking, yet you went against your fears and really pushed, and right now you're creating videos like, all the time, and you're great at talking in front of the camera. So do you think every artist can also make that change and become EJ, essentially?
Well, I don't know if people want to be me, but but I will say that, yes, it's absolutely important to get your work out there, at least stay active on social media, because these days there is just so much noise online, and for you to get found, like if you want to work for Google or Facebook, like how are they going to find you? And I would actually say that these days, I feel like maybe people might be intimidated by putting their work on Instagram or something like that. But I feel like LinkedIn is really this new site specifically for artists that I feel like is getting a lot of traction. And for some reason, I don't know if it's just because LinkedIn's a little bit more business related, that it might not feel like you're putting yourself on the spot as much, whereas maybe Instagram is more like, oh, you're coming to see my personal art gallery because it's all images. I don't know if there's something there, but one thing I will say is that it's always perspective with sharing your own work. There's this one book that I really recommend for everyone. It's called Show Your Work. It's very aptly named, and it's all about breaking down the imposter syndrome that we all feel. Is newsflash, we all feel it. You're not special that you feel that way. So even internalizing that, and it's like, oh, other people feel this way. I need to just get past it and internalize the fact that, yes, I'm going to feel like this every time, but I've pushed past it before, and I can keep pushing past it and getting over that imposter syndrome or even creative block. And a lot of the fear stems from just the fear of creating bad work. And just like I was afraid to go to NAB because I sucked at public speaking, a lot of people don't want to do those first steps, get all the crappy work out, get all the crappy tutorials and public speaking out so that I can get better and improve. So what I would recommend you do is, if you're afraid of posting your work on Instagram or anything, go over to your favorite artist page. And if they are like honest and secure with themselves, you can scroll all the way back to like 10 years ago, maybe even longer. I don't know how long Instagram's been around for. You can go all the way back and see some terrible work from some of your favorite artists that were their first works that they posted. And so I've done that plenty of times, and it grounds you. It gives you perspective. It's also really cool to see, like, your favorite artist's like journey as they go through different styles. Some people just start off and they were just sketching stuff and posting it on Instagram. And then you saw they did 2D, and then you see the evolve to 3D. And it's really incredible seeing the artist growth that you can see on some Instagram pages. Some people are, might be insecure and they remove some of their older stuff. You can go on mine. You can actually go to my YouTube page and watch my very first tutorial. That's an absolute garbage fire. So it's always keeping that perspective, and to get good, you need to do a lot of bad, so I always tell people that.
a lot of people just take the first step. Like you mentioned, they post for the first time. If they don't get any like, or on the other side, if they get a lot of hate, they will stop posting because everyone's first work, maybe it's not their best work. How did you overcome that with your first, like you mentioned, I'm not quoting that crappy tutorial that you put.
What
How
did you say?
He said it himself. But
You were
How
that
dare
comment.
you?
I just said quote unquote. But how did you overcome that feeling? Like how many times you had to put stuff out and get negative comment or your friends telling you that, hey, that's not a good work. Or a lot of people say that I didn't learn anything. By the time, maybe it's the fifth one or sixth one that you get better over and over. Is it just like, like holding your ear and just move forward?
I think there's two forms of feedback. There's just garbage YouTube comments, which you should always just not even think about because they're just all people. The people I found that are the most vitriolic online are the ones that actually don't create themselves. So
Oh, yes.
I feel like I almost feel sorry for those people that are just angry all the time and just leave crappy comments on people's YouTube pages or anything because I'm like, man, I don't know what's going on in your life, but if that's how you spend your time online is just shit posting,
It's sad.
I don't know, man. Like I feel bad for you. Like you're not affecting me at all because like I have, yes, I got to improve if it's like actual crappy work or something, but like I know that I'm not gonna feel embarrassed about that. Everyone can improve. So I think it's all taking comments in stride. I think there's constructive criticism. I think there's criticism that the sole purpose is just to tear someone down, and I don't vibe with that. So I do think it's very important that you get over yourself though too when you do post work and someone's trying to offer advice because I know we all have our egos, and especially when we're just starting out in our careers, we think we're the best. We think we know everything. We don't like to be told that we don't know what we're doing. So I would say, to anyone who's getting into the industry, if you're a student or anything, I think it's very important to open yourselves up to critique, especially if you are not in a studio environment and the only type of critique you get is online. I think you need to reach out to the right people, seek out a mentor, seek out advocates. This is something Matthias over at Maxon talks about all the time. You want a mentor and an advocate, someone that can advocate for you and someone who can be your mentor. And so I think those things are very important. And I think just keeping that perspective, like perspective is one of the biggest things about me is that, there's always going to be someone worse than you. There's always going to be someone better than you. So as long as you are cool with that and you understand you are the only one who is in control of your own feelings and your own perspective, you can be either encouraged or discouraged by someone who's way better than you. And that is all internal and you control how you react to that. So that's my big thing. That's how I kind of keep a positive mindset and keep going. And I think the more you immerse yourself in the community, the more you're going to find out that a majority of the people in this community are absolutely super sweet and have your best intentions in mind. And we're all trying to lift each other up. And I think especially now with the anxiety and with the economy and then even this AI stuff, I think it's even more important for us to have empathy and support and lift everyone up.
100%. We want to talk a little bit about the freelance work because I'm sure there's going to be some of the creators and artists watching that are either getting into freelance or are planning to, or are already in there. And I guess we want to take your hot tip on this and your hot take. What are some of the highs and lows of doing freelance work? I'm sure as much as there are benefits to it, there's also disadvantages. We just want to know what's your take on it. How do you approach these things so that people who might not have as much experience as you can take your guidance on that and be aware of what they're getting into?
I would say the biggest thing for me when I went freelance was like everyone talks about how like, yeah, you should save up like 6 months salary so you're not desperate right out the get-go. And I think that's hugely important. And it's not just because of, security, but it also changes your entire mindset and how you approach projects. And so if you are constantly stressed out and always reaching out to clients and taking on like the crappiest, least paying work ever, that affects you. Because if you're working from a scarcity mindset, you're going to take anything you can possibly get and you're going to act desperate. But if you're confident, and that confidence seeps through like your emails to clients and like, yes, I can do this job, and you're confident with the job. It's a total mindset shift that I think is super important. So that's probably my biggest tip is have some kind of financial security as you're going into freelance. You're not going to be stressed out all the time. If you find that, you go freelance and maybe you went freelance because you had a 2-month gig and then that 2-month gig's over and you're dry for a month. At that point, you can be like, all right, well, it's time to market myself. Let's do some personal projects because I'm not stressing out about money right now. And I can be in the right mindset to create for myself and to market myself, whether that's, I'm tweaking my reel, I'm doing a personal project that shows off some ability that I have that, demonstrates the type of work that you want to work on. I think that's another thing too, where it's like, make the kind of work that you want to get hired for. I know when I started freelance, I was like, man, I'm sick of doing this animated 3D text. And I look at my reel, I'm like, well, shit, that's all that's on my reel.
So that's all they know you for if you're just putting that kind of content out. Absolutely.
So it's definitely, doing the work, making the work that you want to get hired for. And I know there's some people that will say like, well, don't do fake Nike ads or anything like that. But I'm like, it's fine. Like you can just be clear with the client that like, hey, I did this for personal work, but I did it all. Like I did the modeling, I did the lighting, I did the, texture work or whatever. Because I think there's value in, because at the end of the day, like people aren't looking at our resume, people are looking at our reel. And so if you don't demonstrate you can do something on your reel, your client's never going to know that you can do that thing. So definitely think about what are the skills that you need to exhibit to get the jobs that you want, and then make the work that shows that you can do that thing.
It's funny that you bring it up, and I know this sounds a little spiritual, but you can essentially manifest your upcoming clients and your upcoming work by just doing them and putting them out there on social media. Because I was talking about this with Farhad. At some point, we wanted to do music videos, and we still do sort of. We want to have some sort of connection to music videos, either maybe directing a part of it or creating a scene for it. And I was just telling Farhad, all we have to do is just create our own bits of music videos, put them online. At some point, some director or some producer is going to approach us because of the work, if it's great work, and they're going to ask us to do it. So all you have to do, like EJ said, that's like the best advice ever. Just do what you want to get and achieve and essentially have in your life. And eventually, I think it will come to you.
Yeah, I think what you guys are doing with like checking out all the AI stuff, and you were just using was it Luma AI with the mountain, the drone footage, like that was mind blowing. I actually showed people that, and he was like, "Holy shit!" so I mean, dude, like you guys are on the cutting edge of like checking all this stuff out, and I know Winbush does this a lot too, and I think even that is helpful in a way where it's like you don't have to just create art with it. You can also, and this is also in the show your workbook, where you don't just have to post your end result. Sometimes people are way more interested in like your process and what are the tools that you're using and stuff like that. So I always try to be good about that too, where it's like, well, I'm not making a new artwork from scratch and finishing it every day. But if I show some behind the scenes of like, check out this rope simulation thing, or hey, did you know that? And I think artists probably enjoy that more than like seeing your final piece sometimes. So it's always thinking about what are the things that you can offer. You can offer a lot more than just showing the final result of whatever your artwork is. It's like if you just showed the final result of that drone footage, but you didn't show all the behind the scenes and all the things you showed, like I thought that was actually super valuable to see, like how the hell did you do this and how easy all that stuff was.
Imagine if we didn't even say it, we just put up the mountains. You're like, look at this sick environment we created. It took us like 30 days. You could have said that because it did look real. I have to say something. A huge respect to yourself and people like Jonathan. You guys are an inspiration to us as well, especially when we started out. Like I personally started out with Cinema 4D. I mean, I'm using Blender now and Unreal Engine, but Cinema 4D was the one. No, sorry, man, sorry.
No, but the funny thing is, so we were
you can
that
afford
time.
all your nice coffees now because you don't have to pay.
Yeah, well, you know where it's going now.
But the funny thing is that time we were not living in Canada, we were living in Malaysia. So imagine Faraz was watching your tutorial on Cinema 4D in his room in Malaysia, and he's not talking to you on the podcast. So that's like
which is like a big dream come true, because like you guys, first of all, are super humble, super cool to talk to, and I never imagined we'd be having a conversation like this. But the reason I also wanted to say we respect you guys so much is, I mean, if you're talking about guiding people in tutorials, we have zero experience compared to you and people like Jonathan. You guys have been putting all this content out for the longest time, teaching and helping people like us. And what's really important is we got that inspiration from you. So what's really funny is we hated doing tutorials. Like when we first started putting content, because tutorials, I want people to notice, is probably the hardest kind of content to make, because it's not just you creating the work. You have to understand the work to a point that people are not going to make fun of you when you put it out there, because you're literally telling people, I'm a pro at this. Essentially, I'm teaching you. So people are going to be judging you, number one. Number two, you have to spend like so long because you have to record the entire process. Probably have to do it 2 or 3 times because you want the process to not take 5 hours like it did the first time you learned it. You want to make it as short as possible, as entertaining as possible. And one thing that EJ, you mentioned in another podcast was you started out, and the problem with your work, you mentioned this yourself, was your end result wasn't as sexy and as beautiful as other people's. And so your friend told you about that and you appreciated that criticism, and then you changed. And honestly, right now your end result is so cool. Just looking at your the thumbnails, the dope rope dynamics that you just posted today, the claw simulations, all the things they put out have such beautiful end results. And for you, you have to have all these ideas. You have to create the tutorials. So one thing I always say about people like you, and you inspired us because we hated tutorials and now we love it, is because of that comments that you get. Like you mentioned, that one person who texts you and says, yo, because of you, I learned and I created this. You're like, holy shit, that's worth more than anything else. And you guys have mastered that, and you guys inspired us to do that. So I just wanted to say thank you.
Oh, no, thank you. I mean, comments like that are exactly why I keep doing this. Like, it's incredible. You said you're in Malaysia when you were first watching some of the tutorial. Like, that's incredible. And that's the whole thing where it's like, for me, I grew up I went to school in an age where, like, if I needed to have any questions answered about Cinema 4D, I had to look through like the C4D Bible, which is just this thick book, because there was no... there was online message boards and stuff like that, but there was no, and message boards back then were a little toxic a little bit back then. But there was no great community. There was no YouTube tutorials or anything like that. And so, and it just even talking about, feedback and stuff like that, and how some of my first tutorials look kind of like garbage, is because I was like leaning on my insecurities of like, well, I know the technical stuff because the technical stuff's way easier to learn than the design part or the lighting theory and all that kind of stuff, because all those things are hard. And like learning design is like a lifetime process of learning all the ins and outs of design and how you can use design and manipulate it and keep evolving as trends go. But it's just really cool to hear that people from all over the world can watch this and can get inspired by it, because I'm just trying to give back to all the wealth of knowledge and support that I've been given in my career. And so I think that's how we all succeed, is we all are this big community that we all share. We're not precious. We're not trying to keep secrets or anything like that. And we can all inspire each other. And it's the incredible thing is that it doesn't matter where in the world you are, you can touch someone and inspire someone. And so that means a ton to me. So thank you for watching and thanks for supporting me. And it means a lot to hear that all this stuff is helpful, because I remember when I would post a video, I'm like, I don't know if anyone's watching this or understanding it or even care. So
now someone from another continent was watching it.
Yeah,
so.
no, it's always like that. It's people. We always like when we upload it, we're like, we have no idea if this is going to be interesting. Like, is this going to actually help anybody? And again, we get that one comment, and that one comment is like, okay, if it helped one person, then it's worked. And now, of course, with your tutorials, they get, loads of views and loads of people are watching them, and a lot of people are getting inspired by that. So clearly this works. And one thing I always encourage my friends who are artists, who are either introverted or they want to do something big in the world of art, but they just don't know what to do. I always tell them, just create content. And I know, because people have that feeling, that's why we asked that question from you, that when they create content, they're like selling themselves in a way, and they don't like that sort of concept. I always tell them, like, we live in an age right now that content is like your resume. Like, you don't need a resume with like words written on there. Content is the way to do it. And people have that mentality that, oh, for content I have to go in front of a camera and do all of this stuff. I swear to God, Farhad remembers this. I was the most insecure fat child ever. I didn't even, I was insecure as fuck, right? And for me to be in front of camera and create videos every day, definitely not in my mind. But it's changed my life. Like, I would never do anything else. And I'm sure the same thing goes for you. Like, you love what you do. And I know so many people who can make it huge in this world of art if they just start creating content. And the content doesn't have to be you like talking for 20 minutes. It can be you just showing your art, or again, teaching the art. You don't even have to use your video, just use your voice. As long as you're entertaining or educating people, which is a skill you will learn over time, because none of us were good at it in the beginning. And I just wish more people would listen to this and do it, because I know they're definitely better artists than I am. And if they did it, like, the competition for us would be crazy.
Yeah, there's some people that I know that have just started doing tutorials. Like at School of Motion, we always try to get our alumni to create videos and stuff like that. And there's one woman, Marina, she just did a tutorial on like her journey from Blender to Cinema 4D, and she's an awesome character artist. And this is her second tutorial that she's done with us, and the video just blew up, and she did an amazing job. And I'm like, man, I was like, if you look at my second tutorial, oh my God, like, it's just awful. But I think it is important for people to put themselves out there. And I think especially, there's so many unique personalities too, like to be have so much imposter syndrome that you don't think that you have anything to offer to the world is just complete crap. Like, of course you do. There's you both have unique insights and have different career paths and different personalities and inside jokes and senses of humor that people can vibe off of, that, maybe, like people who watch Chris Schmidt might not be the same people who watch a goofy tutorial for me, or might watch something for Jonathan Wimbush. Like, everyone's got their own unique personalities. And, when I was doing tutorial, I feel like I'm old. Back in my day, when I did tutorial, like, I literally had, like, you didn't even need a webcam. You didn't need to show your face, because back then it really didn't matter. But like, now it's like you want to show your face, because you want to, especially if you, like, I'm an introvert by nature. So when I go to these NAB events and people come up to me to say hi, that's awesome, because I'm so introverted that it's really hard for me to go up to random people and say hi. So that kind of like helps me like get conversations going, because people come up to me instead, and break the ice. But these days tutorials are like, the production value is crazy. And I know how much editing you guys are doing in your tutorials too, or it's like, you're not just firing up Cinema 4D, hitting record and just doing screen capture. It's like, you got to keep it entertaining. It's almost like a show these days, where, before I could just show the Cinema 4D interface and not do any fart jokes and it'd be fine. But now it's like, all right, I gotta be funny. I gotta be loose, keep it entertaining. And, so that's something that me personally, I'm trying to get better at as well, because the production value across the board of some of these tutorial artists are insane.
Are crazy. No, we agree with you. And that's what we're trying to do. But I guess the one thing that is really important is the equipments and the softwares have also improved, that it makes editing so much easier now. It's like auto subtitling, right? Like, if you're making a video, boom, one click. Previously, we had to subtitle everything manually, right? So there's tools that will help artists out there, but the stakes are higher, but the rewards higher as well. So if you do start creating content, you will be rewarded if you're looking for client work, if you're looking for, I don't know, being a YouTuber. All of this stuff is possible. And EJ is a great example of, someone who's been spending so long creating all of this and also achieving a lot in this industry. But I think, Farhad, you wanted to...
I just want to take it back a little bit when we talked about freelance work, because you posted on Twitter, if I'm not mistaken, about a tweet that was saying artists recently getting low-paying fees, or they're afraid to let go the jobs, or they get clients.
There was a video of
there was a video of someone explaining that. Actually, I want to know, for freelancers who wants to start and they get this clients who wants to squeeze them, what is your approach to them, or what's your advice to them, how they should treat this?
So I think the video you're talking about, I just tweeted yesterday. So that's already been chewed. That's Barton. He is an amazing artist and studio owner, and I think he does things against the grain, which is awesome, because he's someone who will stand up for his artists in his studio. He'll push back on clients wanting them to work over the weekend when they've been sitting on files and emails that they delivered on Tuesday and they're just getting back to them on Friday. And it's like, no, we're not going to work over the weekend because you didn't review these files that we sent you on Tuesday. Like, no. So that is just having confidence and just being able to stand up for his own artist, because he has been through all those situations himself. And he says that he never wants to go through that again. And he doesn't want to put his own artists through that either. So it comes to just standing up for your team and standing up for yourself. And I think it even goes back to that whole scarcity mindset I was talking about before. If you're absolutely desperate for money, guess what? You're going to let that client steamroll you day in, day out. You're going to work 15-hour days. You're going to work over the weekend. You're going to work over holidays because you're desperate, right? So if you don't value your own time, your client never will. So it starts there. It starts with you, and it starts with you valuing your time off. It starts with you valuing time with your friends and your family, and understanding that, this isn't life or death here. Like a lot of this stuff is, people say like we're not saving lives with our art here. And I think it's just the one thing I will say is that contracts are one of the only things that you can probably point to that will help you push back against the client when it comes to scope creep and stuff like that. And I don't freelance much anymore, but I know when I was doing it, a simple statement of work was huge, because that's technically a legal document. If you lay out everything and say, hey, I'm going to deliver on this date, this date, this, and by the way, there's only 3 rounds of revisions, and hey, this is what a revision is. So we lay that.
That's the most important part. Yeah, that's the most important part.
Yeah. Both of us shouting because we got burned so much by this revision, like thousands of revisions.
You had to essentially do the whole thing all over again as a revision.
Yeah. And so there's some awesome, I feel like there's a lot of people these days that are leaning into the business side of things. Of course, there's Chris Do, there's Motion Hatch, Haley Atkins at Motion Hatch is really great. Joey Corriman's Freelance Manifesto book is really great as well. Shay Lord is also another great resource. She does a lot of good, advice with business. But at the end of the day, it's like there's a lot of resources out there because a statement of work or even a scheduling app or like a Notion board or anything like that, it not only helps you, but it helps the client as well to visualize the schedule, because you're laying everything out, right? And so if you're missing dates because of the client asking for more, it's like, hey, this is beyond what you asked for. And so I can do that, but it's going to take more time. And there was this one scheduling app that who showed me, but it was this visual thing where it's like, I can move this date down and it's going to cascade throughout the whole rest of the schedule. And your delivery date's going to be 2 weeks late. And so when she showed that on just the calendar, the client's like, oh, no, let's just keep it.
No.
So it's just something about like visualize, because all of this stuff is just ephemeral random dates that don't mean much. But once you see it, like, I think it just makes a bigger impact than it would otherwise, of seeing how much it's going to shift the schedule down. So I think it's being proactive. It is over communicating with clients. It's always laying things out, being up front, if a client's saying, oh, I wanted this to be a 30-second video, but actually it needs to be a minute and a half. And you're not just saying like, oh, okay. And then not going back to the negotiating table, because it's like, this is not the same project we negotiated. So again, it takes confidence. It takes respecting your own time. And like I said, the series that Barton's doing with his Already Been Chewed handle on Twitter and Instagram, like they're great, because he's someone who, when he started his own studio, he looked at all the other studios and like basically what everyone else was doing and what was the norms for every other studio. And he's like, that's dumb. Why would I do that? So he's kind of going against that. And I think it's awesome, because their studio does amazing work. And I know their studio has some of the longest tenured artists there. So that means they're not churning and burning through artists like a lot of studios I feel like have the reputation for, or it's like you can work at a studio for a few years, but then you just get burnt out and you got to leave, And so I think he's doing things the right way. And I think the world needs more Already Been Cheweds in the world for sure.
That's some great advice. And speaking about the confidence part, I think that's so important. And I believe another way, bringing this back to creating content, one of the ways that's helped us gain more confidence is creating the content that we do, because when we create these pieces of content, we get live feedback from people in the comments. And I'm talking about the constructive criticism, not the comment from user 659 that says, oh, that's shit.
Sorry, that was me, by the way.
Yeah, come on, man. I knew it. It's looking at that and eventually improving our work and the numbers also that come in. It sort of gives us the confidence and be like, okay, you know what we're creating is helping people. And so when someone comes in and wants to, give us a very low fee, we're like, sorry, no, we know our work is valued more than this, because we do realize that. So I think, again, one other place that I think helps a lot of artists is just showing their work. That definitely helps with the confidence, at least for us. But we want to take your advice on something else as well. And I think you're going to be the expert in this. I believe you're going to be the expert in this because of your position, especially as a creative director at School of Motion. You have helped launch so many courses. Very recently, Jonathan's Unreal Engine course, which was great, by the way. What do you think in 2023 is the absolute best way for someone to get started in 3D? And we're not just talking about software. We're talking about like strategy. As someone who's seen many artists go from zero to hero, what is the best approach, in your opinion?
I think the best approach to learning 3D is, I don't think it's ever going to change. I think it's being a good photographer. It's being a good cinematographer. It's being a good storyteller. It's being good at lighting. All of those things will really set you apart as an artist. And I think even more so now, where 3D is hard. There's a lot of aspects of 3D that you have to learn to be like a generalist. Like we're talking modeling, and that's its whole thing. Like if you want to get into character animation, that's like rigging and then modeling and animation. And that's just incredible. All the artists that know all of those things. But I think we're seeing now where I don't think we're very far away from like, and you even showed in your videos where it's like, if you need a model of anything, 3D model of anything, you can type it up. You don't need to learn how to like, what's a good edge flow, like all that crap that like I struggle with. And so I think what you're going to see is like, modeling always used to be a barrier to get my vision out, and it would keep me from getting my vision out, whether it's a character design or anything like that. So I think once you just focus on the most important aspects of 3D that can translate to literally any 3D app, whether that's Blender, Houdini, Maya, Cinema 4D, that's lighting, that's storytelling, that's cinematography, that's design, that's composition. Because at the end of the day, if AI can make anything for you, it comes down to like, well, what story do you want to tell? What do you have to say? And if you have nothing to say, then you have nothing, because you can't hang your hat up on, well, I'm a really great modeler, or, I know how to do simulations really well. It's like, I can type in 3 phrases and I can do a simulation too, but what are you trying to say with it? Yeah. And so I think it's going to be a shift. And I think it's even more, leading back to putting yourself out there. what are the stories you want to tell as an artist, and like what are you trying to say in general about certain topics, whether it's what you guys are doing with AI. I think showing your personality and your perspective is the thing that's going to set you apart from every other artist out there.
Wow. I didn't expect this answer. I think you have one of the most open mind
Yeah.
in the industry now, because you've been in the industry for a long time, and hearing this from you is really fascinating. And I think with this, I think we can move to the AI topic, because that's the question that everybody is asking. We showed that, I mean, it's the very early stage of text to 3D model, which, it's now looking like this, but probably 1 year, 2 year down the road, it would be quite different. How do you think the AI will impact all this 3D industry, and how do you think our artists should embrace it rather than, hating on it or, being negative about it?
Yeah, I think it goes back to where I say is like you can respond to something positively or negatively, and all that lives within yourself. You control how you react to stuff. So what I would say is it a positive thing to just go online all the time and shit post AI? Is it a positive thing for people that are pro AI to go and shit post artists? No, I don't think that's very productive. Like I said, I think more than ever, we need to have a lot of empathy. There is tons of moral issues here, and we are going to hopefully we won't see this, but I just think it's going to happen. We're going to see this great consolidation of wealth with these giant AI companies that are going to be the leaders in it. They're going to be the Google of AI, and they're going to have they're going to be the one-stop shop for everything. Like you see, I just saw Adobe today announced they're having basically, I think, prompts inside of Photoshop where it's like, here's this image, create a background for me, but I'm gonna just have this person in the foreground that's already in the image. So it's here, and if you argue about the ethics, I think Adobe, from what I understand, is trying to do things the ethical way, and so you can't stop AI because there are going to be people that are going to go about this the ethical way. It's going to be integrated in all of our apps. And, just like how Photoshop put a lot of photographers out of business, or at least photographers that didn't adapt, I think the same thing's going to happen here where, and I heard this from a podcast called the Professor, or the Scott Galloway podcast, so I can't take credit for it, but the line that really stuck with me was that you're not going to get replaced by AI. You're going to be replaced by someone who knows and understands AI really well. And so I think that's it. Just like Photoshop, you're not getting replaced by Photoshop as a photographer. You're getting replaced by a photographer who knows Photoshop really well. So I think you have to realize that in no time in the course of our history has anyone ever stopped the advancement of technology. So with that being said, how are you going to react? What are you going to do? Because you're not stopping AI. It's just not stopping. You can hope that laws are passed, and I think there's value in fighting for copyright and all that stuff. But like I said, on the other side, Adobe's already trying to do this the ethical way. So are you just going to fight and ignore what's going on and try to at least understand it and see how you can use it in your own workflow? Because if a client comes to Joe and hey, I need this project done in 2 weeks, and it's like, well, Joe doesn't know how to do it in 2 weeks, and I do because I know AI, and I think it's, I don't know. As I'm saying this, it's like, well, this is a race to the bottom then. And so I think but I mean, we already see a race to the bottom now too, because guess what? If you're going to ignore AI, who's not? The people on Fiverr. And so, and even if it's like, well, we need ethical uses for art, we need to scrape things that are copyrightable. Well, okay, well, Fiverr will make crap cheap that you can scrape, and there you go. So you're not stopping it. is my main point there. And it's definitely going to suck for a lot of people. I think it already sucks right now for a lot of people. I know a lot of people that are super stressed out about it. Sometimes I get super stressed out about it, just thinking like,
How fast it's going.
yeah, I'm like, well, I'm older. I mean, I see, so, for I got some gray hair there. I got some gray hair. I was like, maybe I was like,
Y'all got it.
I was like, are we close to retiring before this just turns into a total shit show? But I mean, that sucks that's where my brain goes. So I think with every great technological advancements, there's going to be disruption. There's going to be short-term job losses. But I think in the long term, if this plays out like every other advancement in technology, there's also going to be like a net gain in jobs. And I think we're not going to know what those jobs are until we're through the bad part of things. Because just think about how, like I said, with photography and the digital camera, and even what cameras did when, from painting, where like, oh, that's not art, that's just capturing what's here. Like you need to make the painting for it to be art. And so this is not the first time all this stuff's happened. I think, though, AI is one of the biggest disruptions we'll probably have, though, in the art industry. So I think, again, perspective and again, realizing that, okay, if I'm going to have this negative mindset all the time and be stressed out about it, that's a choice that I make. What opportunities am I missing by being stressed out all the time and not focusing on what, my own skills and what I can be doing in the meantime? Like if I have no online presence and I'm constantly stressed out about AI, isn't my time better spent building up my online presence and posting work and getting work out there, so I'm easier to find? Or are you just going to waste your time just spending too much time doom scrolling on social media?
No, that's beautiful. Actually, I want to touch on that really quickly, but I just want to ask EJ, we're at the 1 hour mark. Can we have you for another 10, 15
Absolutely,
minutes? Because
yeah.
I love this conversation.
Let's go.
Yeah, let's
Fantastic. So just based on what you said, not only do we agree with you 200% this time, you did mention, the negative parts, and AI does come with a lot of negatives. That's just out of the question. Like it's obvious. You mentioned this. Every time there's a technological advancement, and especially this being the biggest one in the history of mankind and the fastest one, of course,
Yeah,
it is going to come with disruptions and jobs lost. But at the same time, if we look at the other side, again, I'm going to quote you here. On another podcast, you were mentioning that some artists get discouraged because they see, a really great piece of work, an art. And you, I remember mentioned that you spoke to one of these artists who worked, with a team on something, and you asked him like, oh, what were you working on? And he said, oh, I was working on the bubblegum wrapper.
Yeah.
And so people get discouraged not knowing this. There was like 10 people involved or 20 people involved, and they've had many weeks working on that. The immediate thing is you just go to Instagram, you scroll like, oh shit, I'm worse than all of these, guys I see on social media. So I guess my question now is for a lot of people who are negative towards AI, because we've seen this with people who are using AI, shouldn't people be looking at it in a way that, this is going to be the best opportunity for solo creatives or indie developers and indie artists, just a small group of people or solo, to now compete with all these giant studios who've been, either in a monopoly or they've just been, doing work with loads of budget, loads of people, loads of time. And now it's giving people like, small studios, for example, who are developing a game, let's say like 3 people, and can now make a huge game in Unreal Engine 5 using the procedural tools. Because we're getting hate, but not even talking about AI, but procedural tools in Unreal Engine 5. So many people commented supportive, and so many people were like, oh, this is going to like ruin games. All games are going to be repetitive. Well, duh, of course, some people are going to make games that are going to be, shit because they don't care about the art and they just want to, spam it with procedural tools. Mm-hmm. And some will have the procedural tools as a means to create games quicker, but they're going to actually spend time to make that manual pieces, those hero pieces that is going to make their game stand out. But now it's going to enable them with less funds to be able to create these games for you. So it goes both ways. And I think people might be focusing a little too much on the negatives, whereas all of these solo artists are looking at it. They can essentially look at it from this perspective. Do you agree with that? I want to know your take on that, since you brought up the whole bubblegum rapper thing in the other podcast.
Yeah, I think, well, there is the democratization, and there's this good line, there's this good quote. I'm blanking on who it was, but like the
We need that cold brew coffee.
Yeah, I know. The long shadow of democratization is like ubiquity, where it's just like, okay, anyone can do this. So it's just, I think the problem is going to be like anyone can write an email, right? And we get a crap ton of spam emails and all this kind of stuff. So I think there's going to be a lot more spam as far as it comes to artwork. You can already see with this Mid-Journey where it's like people posting photos that they think look awesome and like the fingers are all effed up or something like that, or they're cross-eyed. But like, this is literally like right now is the worst this is ever going to look. So all those problems are going to go away. But again, if all we're going to have is a bunch of like beautiful AI images, like it's just going to be Shutterstock. It's like, all right, well, why should I care? If anyone can do this, what's the value in it? So that's why I say, where I go back to the whole thing of like, the reason why Buck is amazing is not only because they're artistically gifted, but they know how to solve clients' issues and they know how to tell good stories. If you're an individual, and yeah, you can make a game, it might be shit and no one might want it. And so just because everyone can do it doesn't mean that everyone's just going to create good stuff. So it's going to get noisier out there. There's going to be a lot more spam. But I would argue if there's a lot more spam and you are creating work or telling the right stories that really stand out from all the AI stuff, then I think that's where you're going to find success. So I think if you are, you're a generalist and you're doing a lot of the same stuff that, AI can do now, and you can't offer anything other than that, like if you don't have good soft skills with working with clients or can put yourself out there, I think networking and doing the community stuff is going to be even more important these days. Like it's going to be much, much harder for you just to be on your own little island and expect to get hired. And what I would say too is that with all of this stuff, and we talk about like making plushies and vinyl toys and stuff like that, like I think a lot of this stuff is going to be like, who are the people that really want to do this stuff? Because I think a lot of the stuff that people are making money, like decent money with now, they're just not going to make much money because everyone can do it. And it's just going to push down the rates for people. Like I've talked to people who make vinyl toys and there's like not a lot of money in it, like at all. Mm-hmm. So at the end of the day, it's like people are doing it because they're passionate about the art that they're working on. And so I think people should think more about why did they get into this in the first place, and if they don't enjoy it anymore, then I think you have to think about where your career is going to go at this point. And I think a lot of people are having these, and it's very hard things to think about. Like I said this at one of the panels that I was just on in Philly. I was like, if art was typing in prompts in Mid-Journey and that was my job, I don't want to do that. Yeah, that's not fun. No. That's not creative to me. No. So if the industry shifts in this way, I think a lot of people are going to have to make some hard decisions and realize like, well, if this isn't fun anymore and this industry is not going in the way that I thought it was, I don't know. Like, am I going to work at a zoo now? Like, cause I like animals. Like, it's super hard. But the one thing I always say is that empathy is going to be the biggest thing right now, because there's nothing constructive about like you guys posting a video and people shitting on it or not having a conversation about it, because I think these are very hard issues and we can't just go all tribal on each other. And so I think it's going to take people who are doing the AI art to have empathy and empathize with the artists who are feeling a lot of anxiety, and worried about
Yeah.
their jobs, because that's a real thing. And I mean, people are talking about a global recession and stuff like that. I think you have to be empathetic with those people. I don't think it's very healthy to just shit on other human beings that are going through rough times. And I think, empathy is a thing we lack more and more these days. And it's definitely harder as that kind of stuff and that tribalism hits into the community. I saw this with NFTs, and I hated that happened. And we come out the other end of NFTs, and it's like, wow, like that was kind of gross how some people acted back then. And some people burned a lot of bridges. So I would say, just I think we got to do better with this AI stuff this time around. We can't be burning bridges. I think people who have issues with the ethics, that's totally legit. And I think if you're into AI, you have to recognize that and understand, like, I guess this is a little gross. And you have to look within yourself of like, okay, if this is like based on a bad model, like, if I'm using this, should I just be using it for storyboards and mood boards and stuff? Or should I be like shitting on people saying like good game GG artists? Like, no, like, come on. Like, I think AI is useful.
That's horrible.
I think AI is useful, but I think just like with NFTs, if people just treated that as a way for digital artists to make money and sell their art, NFTs wouldn't have gotten much shit as they had. And I think it's the same thing with this AI. I think there's these, the AI bros, the NFT bros are now the AI bros, and there's just no empathy.
Actually, that's
did you see that meme that the NFT bros of yesterday, AI bros of today? That was a fun.
We're not gonna mention names, but literally know. Okay, again,
I'm not going to mention names.
We
but
know.
Hey, do you know?
No, there's this person who I think podcasted or not podcasted, made YouTube videos. Literally had NFT at the end of his name, and then literally when NFTs went down, now he's replaced it with AI.
Absolutely.
So his username just switched from NFT to AI, which is funny. But we honestly, what you said is, and we understand why it's so hard for you to talk about this, because you've been in the industry for so long. You've seen both sides of the story, people who are using AI to help their craft and people who are suffering because of it. And it's not an easy thing. I don't think any of us has the answer, but the reason we like to talk about this with most of the guests that we bring on is because it's such a huge topic. You just can't ignore it. Right. It's affecting everybody in the world today. And we as artists, we talk about this because it is definitely affecting a lot of artists. Maybe not other industries as much right now, but eventually it will. I'm sure it's going to affect every industry out there, because AI is essentially a super intelligence, and it's only going to get more intelligent, and it's only going to get better. So I guess our take is we want to make sure that we can educate people on what's going on. Now, I want to say this on the record, because the content we put out, our personality is us trying to be funny and entertaining. And some videos, maybe it's not that funny, but that's what we try to do to keep it as cool and as chill as possible. And so I guess sometimes we make those AI related videos, people think that, oh, we're trying to fuck everybody over because, we're selling this AI. But rather what we're trying to do is we're like, hey, yo, this thing is out there. We try to make it fun, but essentially what we want to do is show people, yo, this is out there. You got to know about this. Like, even if you want to ignore it, it's out there. These 3D model creators are going to be there. Eventually the UV unwrapping is going to become automated, which I hope it does, because I hate that with AI.
The funny thing is, for the text to 3D model AI, I think Faraz was the first one who was scared, because he was like, oh my God, look at this. I learned modeling for like how long?
Yeah. I hate the fact that it's there, because I enjoyed modeling was like my peaceful time, because I would go there, I'm like, okay, today I'm modeling, have my coffee, spend like 5 hours. And now I know I still will model because right now the topology is shit.
Right.
But eventually the topology is going to be great. That's just normal. AI is going to learn that. It's going to be better modelers than all of us out there in like a few years time. Mm-hmm. But I still think the reality is that's going to happen. It's just I don't want people to ignore it for the longest time and realize they're fucked. After a long time, I want people to know about this, and I want people to act on it, because if you want to, survive in this industry, but also thrive, not just survive, because surviving is not the reason we all joined, the industry of art. We wanted to enjoy what we're doing, and I think I hope that even with all of these advancements, there's still going to be new things created that we all will enjoy. Hence why we got into Unreal Engine, because we can create all these worlds, at faster rate. And so I at least think, these world creations are not going to be AI generated, at least not for, I don't know, I hope at least not for,
You wish,
not for a
but-
while.
No, I think the most important part is what EJ mentioned about storytelling. Even the AI can create those worlds and environment. What are you gonna do with it? Okay, now you created the best world out there. So what?
Yeah.
What is the story? How I'm gonna go into it? What is the gameplay? Like, I think people now need to focus more on the strategy and storytelling. Then they can use all these AI tools and their own skills to then put out content, put out stories, and put out deliverables.
And
to
just
people.
like anything else, just like how 3D art came about, but there's still a lot of appreciation for 2D art. When 2D art, digital art came about, there was still a lot of appreciation for hand-painted, art. I believe that even 50 years from now, even if AI can do anything, there's still going to be a lot of appreciation for manual 3D modeled work or 3D printed work that was created by manual modeling. So I think people shouldn't lose hope in that sense. But I do encourage, I guess, as someone who's in this industry, people to learn how to use AI. I think avoiding it is definitely not the right way to go. You don't have to go into the unethical ones. You can go to ChatGPT and just get help for your mood boards and stuff like that, or the Adobe ones that you mentioned that they're trying to go the ethical way, because I believe they're using stock photos and videos for training their models. Is that right for Adobe?
Yeah, I think in the artists there, like I think anyone on Shutterstock, like they have to opt in. And I think that's even a big thing too, where like all of this could be solved if the option was just like, if you want to be a part of this, you have to do an action, versus the opposite, where it's like, oh, if you want to opt out, you have to do all this crap. And it's like, that's not how it should be. But yeah, there's so many other AI use cases that people need to be aware of that, like you said, are totally ethical, and it's just like programming. The Luma AI, like they're not scraping art from other people, and Luma AI could immensely improve your workflow. I mean, it's kind of like if you're against the advancement of AI in software, you're just against software updates. And why would you be against software updates? It's like, oh man, that Cinema 4D new simulation stuff is garbage. No one should learn it. I'm going to protest it. It's like, what? So I think I don't think we can't be blanket statementing all of AI, because some AI is doing incredible medical research that again is not ripping off of artists, and it's not unethical. So I don't think we should paint this big broad brush. I think there are the AI art things that totally have the ethical issues, but then there's just all of these software advances that are going to be game changing for a lot of artists. That, like I said, that if you have a vision and there is something like 3D modeling or UV unwrapping, that is this thing where it's just like, oh, like this is keeping me from my vision, those barriers are going to go down. And so I'm excited for, all these other artists that, even if it's something where I know tons of 2D artists that are afraid of learning 3D, as 3D gets more and more accessible, I'm excited to see what amazing 2D artists can do in 3D. So I'm all about empowering artists, and building everyone up and not tearing everything down. And so that's where I'm excited about the advent of AI. I was also saying, like, wouldn't it be amazing if, like, oh man, I'm like using Cinema 4D or Blender and it like crashed and there's this bug and I'm like, oh, like I keep hitting this issue, and then there's like AI just fixes the code for you and you just download the update and it's like, oh, I don't have to wait for a couple months to get this fixed. Like, it's gonna be crazy, the benefits for a lot of art.
And what's funny? I think everyone complains. A lot of people complain about AI advancement. No one's going to complain about auto UV unwrapping to like perfection.
Yeah.
And there are people whose jobs are literally doing the UV topology of models, and so that's like one of the things where I'm like, okay, that's a bit of a you're being a little bit of a hypocrite, because there are people who really are spending all their time
on that,
Exactly. And it's such a complex thing if you want to do like really, I guess complex models, but AI is eventually going to be able to do that as well. But you mentioned software enhancement, and you even shared one of their posts, and I have to talk about this Skybox AI, which has been around by Blockhead Labs for a while now. They create 360 images based on prompts that you can use in your 3D environments or AR, VR, whatever you name it. They recently came up with sketch mode, which blew our mind. It essentially is you sketching out the contour lines, and it guides the image generation. So if your prompt had, let's say, a sci-fi cyberpunk, if you draw out the alley with the contour lines, it's gonna follow that, which is absolutely crazy. This is one of the crazy things. Luma AI, of course, blew our mind. Is there anything specific that has been blowing your mind in the world of AI that you're excited about, or something that you haven't seen that you want to see happen?
So along the lines of like the crazy AI stuff, and again, this is probably under the unethical side of things. But, well, I don't know. Well, because it's called drag GAN, drag, and then
I saw
GAN. You
it.
seen that? Where you got an
Yeah,
image
that
and
was
you're like,
batshit crazy.
and one of the examples is like, I got a photo of a lion, and it could be your own photo that you took. And then you can just like, oh, I don't want it to look that way. I want it to look this way. And it's like, oh, it just turns its head, and it's just insane. And I'm like, holy crap. Cause I had a client that was like, oh, I have this photo of this car. Can you just rotate the car for me? And I'm like, are you insane? Like, no, it's a photo. Like, you can't rotate the, like, I have to
Can't
3D
do that.
model everything. And I'm like, holy shit, like this could actually do that though now. So yeah, it's pretty incredible.
Dude, isn't that like the Photoshop killer or something? Because like it essentially can create, you just need a base photo and then you just drag.
Yeah.
And the cool thing is, I thought, okay, when you look at this, because it's not out yet, right? It was the research papers that were showing the video.
I think so.
Like it looks great.
Yeah.
At all angles. Like you got the ears flopped, and then you want to like pop them right up. It works. It's so fucking crazy. That's the craziest one I've seen so far.
But even that, and it's like I was just I subscribed to National Geographic's like newsletter, and they were talking about AI and how it's getting into like wildlife photography and all that stuff. And it's like, and that's an area where it's like, why would I give a shit about an AI generated image of a lion? Because if I'm all about nature and stuff and I want to connect with nature, that's doing the exact opposite. And so I don't know. I hope there's this like pendulum swing where it's like we got all this AI stuff and it's exciting and everyone's like super vibing with it and all that stuff. But then it swings back to like, what are we doing? Like, I'm disconnected from my art. Like, I'm not feeling great about creating this way, or, I don't get any joy looking at AI photos of animals. Like, I want to see the actual animals in nature, and like, shouldn't I give a shit about the actual animals on this earth that like are endangered or something? Or should, I just think there's like this major thing where we need to, I think AI just really taps into the egotism that some people have. And, even with the NFT stuff, people were talking about like, oh, this is going to help us with, saving the environment and da-da-da. I'm like, that's some bullshit. I've seen people from the environment that never get out in the real world and are in their own little bubbles and in their own little digital metaverses. Like, if you're just in your metaverse all day and you're not in the real world, how could you say you give a shit about the real world or want to protect the environment? So yeah, that's my little rant about that.
Yeah, no, and you're absolutely right. I mean, rightfully so. With NFTs, there was so much fake shit happening, and it bounced back. It bounced right back to a point that like all of those like the shit that didn't really make any sense is all dead now, essentially, right? So with AIs, I think it's going to be essentially the same thing. I'm subscribed to this newsletter that sends all the new AIs, and honestly, every single day there's like
20 new tools.
20 new tools, and I'm probably sure after a while, all like 90% are going to die because they're probably useless. And the ones that stay are going to be the ones that actually help people, and hopefully are the ethical ones that people have skimmed through, and they're like, okay, this actually helps people. It works. It makes us better people. It makes us better human beings, and we can communicate better. We can learn better. And I'm sure that's going to happen. I hope so, because it always works that way. At least I hope it works out the same way with AI as well. But I think that's enough about AI. We covered almost all of the things we wanted to talk about. And I would just want to say thank you again for your take on things. This is not an easy subject to talk about, especially someone like you who a lot of people look up to. You got to be careful with what you say, because saying it the wrong way as well can affect and impact people and people who look up to you. And I think you said it beautifully, the way you talked about, your take on AI. Just, I'm not sure if you have any questions, because I want to just talk about, just his upcoming
Oh yeah,
work.
for sure. We are excited for what EJ has to bring us in the new tutorials that are coming up, new courses.
Yeah.
Is there anything planned that we need to look forward to?
Ooh. As far as courses go, oh well, I am updating my Intro to C4D course. Like literally, after I get off this call, I'm going to start recording some more. So yeah, my initial Cinema 4D Basecamp class for School of Motion, I think I made in like 2018. A lot of things have changed in Cinema 4D since then. So kind of going back and redoing that, and even that's kind of nice because what I knew 5 years ago and how the industry was 5 years ago, 6 years ago is completely different now. So it is kind of, I think if anything, it helps me refocus of like, okay, what's the most important aspects of 3D that I need to be teaching here? Because sometimes, I can go down tangents and teach like, hey, let's shiny new feature over here. And it's like, again, even talking about, what is AI going to replace, and like, what are the most important things that an artist can market themselves for? And it's always the lighting, it's always the storytelling. And so that's kind of our jobs when we make these courses, is empowering artists, teaching them the right things, and making them competitive in this ever-changing world. So yeah, doing the new Basecamp class. We got the DAT Tour still cranking, going through all these different cities. Me personally, I got the plushies shipping, so I was super excited about that. The company reached out to me and said they want to do another one with me, so I'm like excited about that.
Oh, nice.
Looking forward to that.
Trying to make some stickers and some merch and stuff. Maybe I'll get a merch store going up there. But yeah, it's just been a lot of fun. And I think, with artists, I think even, now more than ever, I think it's important to have your hobbies to keep you sane, and definitely unplug, because I just know there's a lot of anxiety about out there. And I think now more than ever, community is important. Disconnecting is important. Having conversations, difficult conversations, is healthy as well, especially about, like, I'm glad that we're all chatting about AI here, because the conversations that they got to be had. And I think there's a lot of anxious people out there. So the more we keep the conversations open and we empathize and we are civil about this whole thing, like, the better. But yeah, the DAT show is rolling into Nashville. Let me get the show up there. So, because if anyone's listening to your podcast, they're going to be at any of these future dates, I'd love to see people there. So we got Nashville, June 11th. We are coming to, since you guys are in Vancouver, we're going to be in Vancouver on July 28th. So that's announced.
Yeah, we'll be there.
Tickets aren't available yet, but hopefully that date sticks. And then for any other Canadians that listen to your show, Toronto, August 17th, and then Montreal, August 22nd. Then you can go to GoToDAT, GOTODAT.com, and they'll have all the dates on there. Again, we have Europe, we got London, Paris, Berlin, Barcelona on the list there. So if there's any Europeans, love to see some of y'all
everywhere. You can't miss it. Yeah. That's the best part.
Yeah, so I'm excited about this tour. I think, just again, with all the anxiety and stuff, I just love that there's this outlet. And like I said, after the presentations, we all have a little like chat, like a round table, which if you go to the GoToDAT.com, they're posting, MoGraph.com is posting all the panel chats. And of course, every single city we go to, we open the Pandora's box of AI and, definitely talk about that for like half an hour or longer. So, but it's great to connect with people, like yourselves. And I'm really glad that you're doing this podcast because, I think, through COVID and everything, like human connection and having conversations is super, super important right now.
100%. We're gonna make sure we make it to the Vancouver event, but even if we can go to, I don't know, the other, because we haven't seen the other parts of Canada yet. You know, we haven't gone to Toronto and Montreal, so we might even go there.
Yeah, and then the same dates, and we hang out.
Yeah.
Because I think it's great to, you know, connect and do all these things together.
Yeah, it's going to be really fun. You guys, if you're watching this, we're going to leave the social links of EJ down in the comments below. And also for the DAT Tour, we're going to leave the link down there. So in case you guys have missed the date, you guys can go check it out. It's going to be one hell of an event. And again, depending on where you are in the world, there's probably going to be a city close to you. So make sure you check out all those dates. And once they're available, because I believe not all of the tickets are available right now.
Not yet.
Yeah. Right. Yeah, so you can check the websites here and there and just make sure when it is, you guys can get the tickets. I guess for Vancouver, when it's available, we'll let you guys know. But aside from that, EJ, thank you. It was a hell of a lot of fun just chatting with you today. We love talking to you. And again, it's been crazy seeing you and talking to you here live. Hopefully the next time it's going to be physical so we can have even a cooler chat. Because nothing beats that physical connection when you're chatting with someone. Absolutely. So I'm sure that's going to happen eventually. But yeah, thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Yeah, I can't wait to make some bad decisions with you all in person.
Yes. Thank you. I love that.
Thank you for that, EJ. It was a pleasure.
Was actually use the name. Let's go. For everybody watching as well, we hope you guys enjoyed this episode. We'll see you guys again next week. We'll announce the guest somewhere on our social media as it gets closer to the date. Until then, thank you so much. We'll see you guys later.
Ciao.